Now we will mainly focus on the topics of intersections and level of service. So let's begin from the topic of intersections. Intersections are an inevitable part of any street system. Here the word street means the road. Driving around any city, one notices that a large majority of urban streets share an intersection, where drivers can decide whether to go straight or turn onto another street. A road or street intersection can be defined as the general area where two or more roads join or cross, including the roadway and roadside facilities for traffic movement within it. Because an intersection has to be shared by everybody wanting to use it, it needs to be designed with great care, taking into consideration efficiency, safety, speed, cost of operation, and capacity. The actual traffic movement and its sequence can be handled by various means depending on the type of intersection needed. Geometric design of transportation facilities must provide for the resolution of traffic conflicts. In general, these may be classified as merging, diverging, weaving, and crossing conflicts. Illustrated in next slide. Merging conflicts occur when vehicles enter a traffic stream. Diverging conflicts occur when vehicles leave the traffic stream. Weaving conflicts occur when vehicles cross paths by first merging and then diverging. And crossing conflicts occur when they cross paths directly. So here you can see different types of traffic conflicts. So this is the merging. Here you can see the diverging conflict, and here the weaving. And this is crossing. There are three basic ways of resolving crossing conflicts. Time-sharing solutions involve assignment of the right of way to particular movements for particular times. An example of this type of solution is the signalized intersection. Space-sharing solutions convert crossing conflicts into weaving conflicts. An example of this is the traffic circle or rotary. Grade separation solutions eliminate the crossing conflict by placing the conflicting traffic streams at different elevations at their point of intersection. Examples of this solution are freeway interchanges and highway railway grade separations. So interchange should not be the new word for you. Simply we can say interchange, you can say highway junction in which traffic may change from one road to another without crossing a stream of traffic. In general, there are three types of intersections. Number one, intersection at grade. Number two, grade separation without ramps. And number three, interchanges. Uh, the word ramp, basically the ramp is a road that connects a freeway to a surface, street or another freeway. The common intersection at grade is one where two or more highways join, with each highway radiating from an intersection and forming part of it. These approaches are referred to as intersection legs. Such intersections have their own limitations and use. Examples of at-grade intersections are shown in the next slides. So here you can see examples of at-grade intersections. So you can see this one, unchannelized T, flared T, T with turning roadways, unchannelized Y, and this one you can see Y with turning roadways. And if you just look at these examples of at-grade intersections, unchannelized and flared and channelized. So here on this slide you are having the four-leg intersection. On the previous slide we had three-leg intersections. And here you can see multi-leg intersection, this one, and here you can see the roundabout. When it is necessary to accommodate high volumes of traffic safely and efficiently through intersections, one resorts to through traffic lanes separated in grade, and this is generally referred to as an interchange. The basic types of interchanges are shown in slides to follow. When two highways or streets cross each other at different grades with no connections, the arrangement is referred to as a grade separation. So here you can see the various types of interchanges. So here you can see the T or trumpet type. This is the Y, and this is partial cloveleaf. Ramps in two quadrants. You can see this one and this. And here you can see the cloveleaf type interchange. Here you can see directional interchange. This one, the diamond interchange, and here this is the rotary type interchange. Design considerations and objectives. The objective of intersection design is to reduce the severity of potential conflicts between vehicles, including pedestrians, while providing maximum convenience and ease of movement to vehicles. Four basic elements are generally considered in the design of at-grade intersections. Number one, human factors such as driving habits and decision and reaction times. Number two, traffic considerations such as capacities and turning movements, vehicle speeds and size and distribution of vehicles. Number three, physical elements such as characteristics and use of abutting property, sight distance and geometric features. Here the word abutting means the adjacent. Number four, economics factor such as costs and benefits and energy consumption. Insofar as interchanges are concerned, their type and design are influenced by many factors, such as highway classification, character and composition of traffic, design speed, and degree of access control. Interchanges are high-cost facilities and because of the wide variety of site conditions, traffic volumes and interchange layouts, the, the warrants that justify an interchange may differ at each location. The bottom line when considering adoption of an interchange is clear, that is, can the cost of interchange be justified? Traffic control devices. Traffic control devices include signs, movable barriers, and signals. All these can be used alone or in combination if necessary. They are primary means of regulating, warning, or guiding traffic on all streets and highways. Traffic control devices strive to provide safe and efficient functioning of intersections by separating conflicting vehicle streams in time. In other words, the right of way through an intersection during a given period is assigned to one or several streams of traffic. For example, yield or stop signs assign priority to particular traffic streams relative to other streams at the same intersection. Well, here the word yield means to give way, or you can say to allow another to pass first. So I will repeat, for example, yield or stop signs assign priority to particular traffic streams relative to other streams at the same intersection. A four-way stop sign establishes a rough first-come, first-served traffic control for intersections with light traffic. Traffic signs and markings are used for establishing a street or highway system that is clearly understood by its users, drivers and pedestrians. Specifically, traffic signs and markings fulfill the following purposes: the regulation of traffic, for example, speed limits, turn prohibition, alerting and warning drivers and pedestrians regarding roadway conditions, and guiding traffic along appropriate routes to reach trip destination through signs and marking. These purposes apply to all control devices, including signals, markings, and channelization. Naturally, to be effective, control devices must meet the following basic requirements. Number 1, fulfill a need. Number 2, command attention. Number 3, convey a clear, simple meaning. Number 4, command respect of road users. Number 5, give adequate time for proper response. Signs should be of proper design and should be placed properly and appropriately. They should be operated consistently and maintained routinely. Finally, there must be uniformity in application so that recognition and understanding of these devices is easy and unambiguous. Traffic signs fall into four broad areas of functional classification according to use. Number 1, regulatory signs. Regulatory signs are used to impose legal restrictions applicable to particular locations. They inform drivers of certain laws and regulations, the violation of which constitutes a misdeed. There are four principal groups of regulatory signs, excluding those for pedestrian. Right-of-way signs. the most common being stop and yield signs, speed signs, movement signs such as turning or one-way signs, and the parking signs. Number 2, warning signs. Warning signs are used to call attention to hazardous conditions that would otherwise not be readily apparent. Such signs require caution on the part of the driver and may call for a speed reduction or other maneuver. Typical conditions where warning signs are used include highway construction zones and approaches to intersections, merging areas, pedestrian crossings, and school zones. Number 3, guide or informational signs. Guide or informational signs provide directions to drivers and to various destinations. These are placed far enough ahead of intersections and interchanges to allow adequate time for drivers to make their routing decisions. Number 4, directional signs. Directional signs on high-speed highways are used at interchanges associated with freeways. Now we are going to discuss the topic of level of service. Although speed is a major concern of the motorist using a freeway facility, it remains nearly constant over a wide range of flows. Freedom to maneuver within the traffic stream and proximity to other vehicles are equally important and are used in preference over speed in describing the level of service. Here the word proximity means closeness. So freedom to maneuver within the traffic stream and proximity to other vehicles are equally important and are used in preference over speed in describing the level of service. Besides, density increases throughout the range of flows up to capacity and therefore provides a better measure of effectiveness. The densities used to define level of service for basic freeway sections are as follows. So level of service from A to F, and correspondingly you can see the density range. For example, for A level of service, the density range is from 0 to 11 passenger car per mile per lane. Passenger car per mile per lane. So from A to F, and A means the highest level of service and F means the lowest level of service. So based on the density, you can categorize the level of service. Level of service criteria for basic freeway segments are shown in table 7-1. To be within a given level of service, the density criterion must be met. Figure 7-3 illustrates the relationship among speed, flow, and density for basic freeway segments operating under base conditions. Various levels of service are shown using density boundary values. Either table 7-1 or figure 7-3 may be used in making level of service determination. Well, if you just look at this table, so you can see that free flow speed 75 miles per hour. So this table is meant for that, and this one is meant for 70 miles per hour, and so on. This is for 65 miles per hour, this is for 60 miles per hour, and this is for 55 miles per hour. And you can see here that maximum density, that is passenger car per mile per lane, and then the minimum speed, in miles per hour, and here look at the maximum V over C. Well, keep this thing in the mind that V over C means volume to capacity ratio. So volume to capacity ratio, that is V over C. And then maximum service flow rate, that is again the passenger car per hour per lane. So you can see this thing that if you just look at this one, V over C ratio, that is the volume to capacity ratio. So you can see that as this ratio is increasing, the level of service is dropping. Well, this slide is showing speed flow curves and level of service for basic freeway segments. In other words, this figure is showing the relationship among average passenger car speed, density, and the flow rate. Well, if you just look at this is meant for 55 miles per hour, free flow speed equal to 55 miles per hour, and you can see that this line is perfectly horizontal up to 1750 passenger car per hour per lane flow rate, and corresponding to free flow speed of 60 miles per hour, we are having 1600. Corresponding to 55 miles per hour, we are having 1450, and corresponding to 70 miles per hour, we are having 1300, and corresponding to 75 miles per hour, we are having 1200 passenger car per hour per lane flow rate. So this is a useful diagram because this is portraying the relationship among average passenger car speed in miles per hour, density, passenger car per mile per lane, and the flow rate, passenger car per hour per lane. So here you can see this figure is portraying the level of service A. This is meant for level of service B, and this is showing the level of service C, and this is D, E, and F. And you can see that what is happening to the traffic. Traffic is minimum, and that's why here the level of service is highest, A. And as we are moving from A to B, traffic has increased, further increase, and then this is D, level of service, this is level of service E, and this is the level of service F. So here the lowest level of service, you can see that many vehicles can be seen, so congestion you can see, so that's why level of service is lowest in this case. So I will repeat, level of service A means the highest level of service, and the level of service F means lowest level of service. The concept of level of service can also be considered for the pedestrians. So level of service A, B, C, and from A to C you can see that here only just one pedestrian, here increase in the number of pedestrian. So you can see that level of service A, pedestrian space is greater than 60 square foot per pedestrian, flow rate is less than or equal to 5 pedestrian per minute per foot. So you can see at a walkway, level of service A, pedestrians move in desired paths without altering their movements in response to other pedestrians. So free movement is possible. Walking speeds are freely selected, and conflicts between pedestrian are unlikely. So this is showing the level of service A. Level of service B, pedestrian space is greater than 40 to 60 square foot per pedestrian. Flow rate is more than 5 to 7 pedestrian per minute per foot. So at level of service B, there is sufficient area for pedestrian to select walking speeds freely, to bypass other pedestrians, and to avoid crossing conflicts. At this level, pedestrians begin to be aware of other pedestrians and to respond to their presence when selecting a walking path. Now look at the level, level of service C, pedestrian space, that is more than 24 to 40 square foot per pedestrian. Flow rate is more than 7 to 10 pedestrian per minute per foot. So at level of service C, space is sufficient for normal walking speeds and for bypassing other pedestrians in primarily unidirectional streams. Reverse direction or crossing movements can cause minor conflicts, and speeds and flow rate are somewhat lower. And on this particular slide, you can see the level of service D, level of service E, and the level of service F. So you can see that here in the case of level of service D, pedestrian space more than 15 to 24 square foot per pedestrian, flow rate, that is more than 10 to 15 pedestrian per minute per foot. So at level of service D, freedom to select individual walking speed and to bypass other pedestrians is restricted. Crossing or reverse flow movements face a high probability of conflict, requiring frequent changes in speed and position. The level of service provides reasonably fluid flow, but friction and interaction between pedestrians is likely. And look at the level of service E. Pedestrian space more than 8 to 15 square foot per pedestrian. Flow rate is more than 15 to 23 pedestrian per minute per foot. At level of service E, virtually all pedestrians restrict their normal walking speed, frequently adjusting their gait. At the lower range, forward movement is possible only by shuffling. Space is not sufficient for passing slower pedestrians. Cross or reverse flow movements are possible only when with extreme difficulties. Design volume approach the limit of walkway capacity with stoppages and interruptions to flow. So look at that. A number of pedestrians now, congestion you can see, you can feel, and then the lowest level of service, that is F. Level of service F, the pedestrian space is less than or equal to 8 square foot per pedestrian. Flow rate varies in this case, because this is the lowest level of service. At level of service F, all walking speeds are severely restricted, and forward progress is made only by shuffling. There is frequent, unavoidable contact with other pedestrians. Cross and reverse flow movements are virtually impossible. Flow is sporadic and unstable. Space is more characteristic of queued pedestrians than of moving pedestrian streams. So in this way, in this lecture, we have discussed the intersections, traffic control devices, and the level of service. Thank you.